realized that the audio on the previous one was a little bit, I was holding it a bit too close, basically. So it was popping a lot, so I'm gonna try and hold it further away from myself this time. Hello, welcome to Narrative. My name is Veronica, and today we're going to be talking about the series Warrior Nun. It is a series that follows Ava, who gets put in a Christian orphanage with nuns. Story starts when she is about to turn 18 and the nun her because angel of death stuff. At the same time as this happens, the order of the crucified sword, the OSD? No. Order of the crucified crucifix? Whatever, the order. I can't remember. The order itself of warrior nuns that has the halo of an angel that is able to help them fight demons that come to the world and are trying to get their hands, the grubby little hands on the halo. So there's a world order, only women, except for the manager, who is a father. And by father, I mean like in a religious sense, he is a man. It's a whole thing, okay? It's an order of women, led by women, all of that stuff. It's only for women, except for the manager, who is a man. So Ava gets this like she's dead. she's gone. And she gets the halo put into her because it's the only way to keep the halo away from demons who are attacking. I think that the nun who put it in her were thinking we'll just hide it here, but it actually brings Ava back to life. Ta-da, we have our main character. Ava can now walk. She is an able-bodied person now. She runs away from the mayhem and disappears. And the order is just like, oh my god, what have I happened? You know, they're like confused. And then they go out, they figure out that she's now alive, and they're like, what? But they go out and try to find her. Basically, the whole series is about Ava, who now got revived, the Halo Bearer, and has to kind of fight demons and stuff like that. There will be spoilers in this video. I'm gonna try to keep them at minimum, but in order to actually explain and talk about the narrative, of course, I actually have to talk about the narrative. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch it. My overall review is that the first half of the first season is quite weak. Second half is better. Second season is very good. And the whole thing that unquestionably, unquestion, is that a word? I don't know, whatever. I'm very excited right now. That makes this series as good as it is, in my opinion. It's not perfect. I don't think any story is perfect, but it is a very solid story because of the characters and the complexities and the subtext of their existence and their interpersonal relationships, I should say. The backdrop of a religious, specifically Christianity setting is interesting. It has its merits, but it doesn't... Of course it plays a big part, especially because each episode is named after a psalm and religious text, whatever, like Bible stuff. Like, you know, the Elias 40.2 or whatever. Can you tell I've never actually read the Bible? I don't know what theirs are called. I forgot. Okay, every episode is named after that, and I think that if you know Bible stuff or if you go looking for it, it probably is tied to what is in each episode, and I think that's a nice touch, especially considering that this is about Christian lore. As far as I understand, this story, or the crucifixion sword, whatever, the order, this whole thing, the Warrior Nun, is based on a comic of the same name. However, the comic is very 90s and has the nuns in BDSM gears and thongs. So not really appropriate, you know, but so they thankfully updated it. I think that the costume, the swords, the weaponry has been very well put together in this series. I really enjoyed it. I like the aesthetic of it. Clearly I'm not religious, so I'm not going to be speaking on the accuracy of things. Oh, wait, thongs, right. So as far as I understand, this whole thing is based on that comic book by the same name. However, the main character in that series is Sister Shannon, that in the TV series starts out by dying. And then the halo gets transferred to Ava, who is a new character invented for this series, which is a good sign because it's like, hey, yes, it takes inspiration from the Warrior Nun, the comic book. However, this is a different series. This is a different story, and we're making changes to it. I think it's a good sign to it, to just like, okay, we're not going to touch the original story. We're not going to touch that character, etc., etc. So, as I said, what makes this series so good is the characters. And at first, I will be perfectly honest and say, at first I really thought that they were going to be the stereotypical cardboard cutout type of archetypes of YA characters, because this is a YA story, seeing as she's just turned 18 when this started happening. She is a teenager. The people around her are roughly around that age. I think some of them are like maybe mid-20s, except for the Mother Superior and for the manager, Father Vincent. So I was really expecting this story to be, you know, all right, whatever, just some Christian propaganda with poorly written characters. And I am so thankful that I was wrong. I really enjoyed these characters because they were complex and they developed and they showed different sides of themselves. They didn't have that one defining character. They didn't have that one defining characteristics that defined who they were and their role in the group and everything that you very often see in YA stories, where it's people seem to think that teenagers are not capable of complex thought. We don't need that simplification. I think that it's important for young adults to have this complexity introduced in their stories at at the stage of their life. And so I really, really enjoyed how these characters, specifically the development of who they were facing these different and difficult situations, but the interpersonal relationships that they had were so well done. I really enjoyed how different characters displayed different traits and behaviors, I should say, depending on who they were interacting with. Online, I've seen some comments about how they didn't like that Ava's character was inconsistent in her behaviors. And I see kind of what they're coming from, or where they're coming from, but I digress. I disagree. I'm stumbling over my words today a lot. I do disagree with them because here's a young woman who has been confined to a bed for the past 11 years and then abused by the nuns who are supposed to care for her, and then ultimately also by said nun. I almost said nurse. And then she also gets revived by this halo, and then she's just thrust into this organization, secret as it may be, and girl power and all, woo. But this organization is still part of the religion that this nun who killed her was using as a justification to end her life. Of course, she's gonna have conflicting feelings about it, and then not only that, but also the supernatural has just been introduced to her, like, my God. And then there's a cute boy who is also very much interested in her. She is a teenager. Like, you can say whatever you want, she is a teenager, and she's experienced life for the first time as it's portrayed. And then she has conflicting feelings of, clearly she wants to be a good person and she wants to do right, and she kind of understands, like, oh my God, there's bigger things happening. But at the same time, I just want to live, and I don't want to be at someone else's mercy and instructions. Like, the pendulum is gonna swing from leave me the fuck alone, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want, to I actually need to do something good and I need to help here and I want to be a good person, but whatever. I don't think that that's necessarily inconsistent. I think it's surprisingly realistic of someone who is in a position where they're dealing with a lot of contradicting feelings. And she's not gonna make the right decision all the time. I do agree with the critique that it dragged on for too long. I do. That's why I think that the first half of the first season is quite weak, because it did drag on a little bit too much. It was a little bit too long. So I do agree with that criticism. But overall, I don't think her inconsistencies is what made it a problem. Moving away a little bit from Ava to talk about the supporting cast, which were arguably, in my opinion, much better characters than Ava. Mary, the most complex, interesting character in this story, in my opinion. I think that her doing what she did without taking the vows, and then clearly her love for Shannon and their relationship, and then her relationship with Father Vincent. She was very interesting and very dynamic in her behavior, even though it was consistent throughout. I really, really enjoyed her character, and I think that there's so much to gather from her and how she displayed her faith and sisterhood and how important it was to her and so on. Major spoiler about Mary here, go to this time if you want to skip it. I really, really hated the way that they had her exit the show. I think that the way she sacrificed herself in the last episode didn't really make sense. She was too level-headed, in my opinion, to make that kind of a rash decision. And I guess that the actress just wanted to move on to something else, but they used it also in the second season as this hint of like, oh my god, maybe she's alive kind of thing, and then you never got a payoff for it. And I don't know about you, but the fact that at that point we know Father Vincent was the bad guy, or one of the bad guys, him being the one saying that Mary is dead I wouldn't believe it if I was them, because why would you believe anything he says? So, in my opinion, Mary's exit of the show was done quite dirty. Hello, welcome back to those who jumped ahead. Beatrice, oh my god, Beatrice. I loved Beatrice. I think that she very much portrayed the golden child kind of character really well. She didn't have a choice but to be perfect, and she was badass, she was knowledgeable, she was strategic, she was perfect, she was great. And all of this was to compensate for the fact that she was a lesbian. At first, I was really worried that we were going to have a situation of queer baiting, and I'm so grateful, so happy that we got an on-screen kiss from it, because it really made that second season much more. The build-up in the second season paid off. Even if it's a tragic end and everything, getting that kiss on screen I think was very important. Otherwise I would be ranting about queer baiting as well. But I really liked Beatrice. In my opinion, she should have been the one to get the halo and become the leader, not Lilith. Like the planned leader, because it was just... Beatrice is way too good of a character and too good of a leader to be anything else. Lilith, I mean, could you give her a name that is more foreshadowing than that? I just turned to my partner when it's like, oh my god, she's the character that is gonna become like the traitor. Who the fuck would have thunk it? I did like Lilith's character though. I liked how specifically she and Mary interacted, because it showed Mary was so skilled at understanding how to talk to the different sisters. And Lilith wouldn't listen to words, so they fought a lot physically, and then they could have a conversation. I really think that Mary and Lilith's friendship, or whatever they want to call it, was a very difficult but still very intriguing relationship. But overall, Lilith's character, I felt like she was just kind of there to progress the story. I think that they could have done a lot more interesting stuff with her, specifically leaning into the relationship between the sisters. But instead they made her into something else, and then she jumped sides and joined a different group of fanatics. And I mean, it makes sense. I understand where it comes from to a certain degree. I just think that they could have done more with the character, which I suppose they might have done, considering I heard somewhere that the story writers were planning, like, writing a story for maybe 6 or 7 seasons. So that would explain why the ending might have felt a bit rushed here and there. Mother Superior or Superior, I can't remember which one it is, so I'm gonna go with Superior because I already think I said it once. She portrays herself as this cold, distant teacher that the sisters just look up to as this guiding light kind of thing. But then you get, specifically in season 2, you get so much more from her, and I found her really intriguing. And I'm very interested with her relationship with almost a cathedral. Cardinal Duretti. How close they seem to be in certain areas, and the fact that they have direct contact and stuff like that. Speaking of Duretti, I found him to be a very interesting red herring. For me personally, I was like, this is too obvious to be the actual bad guy. He is too easy of a bad guy, basically. So to me, it was very obvious that he was a red herring, but it was done pretty well because I think that Duretti was a surprisingly interesting character, specifically in season 2, where he stood up against the big bad, Adriel? I think that's Adriel. Yeah, because you have Adriel and Adriella. Like, whatever. The big bad guy, the demon angel dude, bro. I saw it called the Walmart Jesus. I thought that was hilarious. When Duretti stood up against Adriel, I was like, oh, okay, so you have some, you have a spine. But at the same time, moving into the next point here of the display of religion and faith, it was very interesting for me from Duretti standing up against Adriel, but at the same time when, what was his name? The advisor to the science person? The archivist, whatever, him. When they were exchanging words in the Vatican, how clear it was that it wasn't about faith, it was about power. And I really, really appreciate this series' both portrayal of religion and faith, but also the criticism of it, especially like organized religion and fanaticism. Because when you see how the cardinals were handling how to pick a new pope, it isn't about religion, it's not about faith. These people are politicians in a religious setting. To give you an example, that would be basically the US Senate. These people are using religion to consolidate power and justify their reasons. It's basically the same thing. So it's not about religion or faith when the cardinals get together. It is a political playground where they are consolidating their power. So I do appreciate the portrayal of the complexities, because you have people who are religious who are very much about the faith and the kindness and the compassion. And then on the other side, you also have people who are religious or using religion in order to be the most powerful religious leader in the world, aka the Pope in this case. Or then when in season 2, when the fanaticism really took like front and center, that was very interesting to see how the world may react to the appearance of a divine being. I personally feel that they portrayed it pretty well, that there would be people who would just flip and be like, yes, amen, holy being, everything, fanaticism, like, yes, thank you, I will take it. And then you would have other people who go like, this could just be a scam. This could be like a ruse. I thought it was very interesting to see characters going like, yeah, Adriel is real. This is proof of the divine. However, is the divine really the religious context, or is it like Gillian Salvius? I think it was, the science lady, was seeing it more as like, this is proof of another dimension and just a different expression of life. But on top of that, you also have a lot of people who don't view the existence of the divine necessarily as a God thing, but more like, okay, so different worlds exist, powers we don't understand, they do exist, the expression of existence, rather than necessarily like someone who is God or above us, all of that stuff. I think that was a very realistic view of like, it's not gonna be an instant like we are a unified earth under Christianity's God. So I do appreciate that. And speaking about the science lady, I do appreciate showcasing the scientific approach to it, that she has faith, but she's not religious. She has faith that there is something more and how she could help her son, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she is religious and believe in that there is a God. She believes and have faith, I should say, in the fact that there is a realm where he can continue to live forever or be healed, or whichever version of that. So she's not religious, but she has a lot of faith. And I think especially showcasing the scientific aspect of things really showcased, I'm saying that a lot, how the church doesn't want proof to exist because that is a direct threat to their power. And I thought that was a nice aspect to include. Moving on to my final point, and it is about the internal monologues. I saw a lot of criticism about this online, and people are very split on whether or not they thought it was good or it was horrendous and excruciating. Some people were very dramatic in their response. But overall, there is the whole thing where Ava's inner monologue is voiced in the first season more than the second season. And the first season tries to be a little bit more like snappy remarks, banter, quips kind of stuff. And I don't necessarily think that all of them land, because I don't think that the actress herself has necessarily the delivery for those kind of like witty banter. So it falls flat somewhere. But on other parts, I think it really worked well with her just kind of breaking the tension in this moment by hearing her inner thoughts, right? Of like, she's having this really intense feeling moment with this cute guy, and then she's like, oh wait, is he flirting with me? Like, I thought that was pretty funny. I personally thought it worked. I didn't have a problem with how it was used. As I said, it didn't always land perfectly, but having the inner monologue of a teenage character, I didn't think that it took away from the story. I think that it comes down to individual preference, whether or not you like this type of style or not. It's a narrative vehicle that you have to, if it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, you know? I did, however, see someone make the criticism of like, quote, I didn't know if she was talking to me or if she was just talking to herself. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of the point. In this style, you're not supposed to be able to tell whether or not she's narrating for your sake or she's just doing it in her head. She is, of course, delivering information and context to you, but the dialogue itself or the monologue itself is written as if she's just thinking about it to herself. That's the point. Because you can have, it's not meant to pull you out of the story. It's not meant to break the fourth wall. To just give you an example, Ava's monologue is not meant to break the fourth wall the way that Deadpool does. Deadpool, literally, the point is to, I am talking to you, viewer, because I know that you are viewing me. That is the fourth wall breaking. Whereas Ava's is more like, oh, okay, wow, he has really, like, he's really cute. And then, like, he has big muscles. Or, like, that's a demon. Like, it's meant to be an addition to her character to give you the kind of depth and understanding of the inner workings of the character that you would get in books, but is more difficult to get on the visual screen aspect of things. But as I said, it's an individual preference. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It doesn't make the story worse. However, I would ask the people who were criticizing this with such extreme venom that made me go like, whoa, okay, calm the fuck down a little bit. If they're criticizing it because they really, really dislike the narrative vehicle that it is, or because it's a young woman's voice and inner thoughts. I would ask people to consider that angle, because we know that people tend to criticize women or femme-presenting people more harshly than anyone else simply for existing and breathing. So are you disliking the narrative vehicle that it is, the function it is, or is it because of who is doing it? Whose thoughts it's presenting. All in all, I really enjoyed watching it. I think that the second season very much delivered on what I was expecting from it. I think that the first season was weaker, a little bit almost lost me there towards the middle, but I'm happy I stuck with it because the characters are fantastic in this and I enjoy the subtext in this series very much. If you have watched this series, please let me know what your thoughts about it are down below. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. Otherwise, I hope that you're having a good day, night, wherever you are in the time stream, and I will see you next time. Bye!